It is day 24 of the Guardians manager search, maybe day 60, depending on when you believe the writing on the wall when things came out about Terry Francona. And we're going to add more names to the list because every day it just feels like we are just adding more guys to the list, crossing some guys off the list. And maybe we're bringing one guy back on the list that we thought was off. It is not Jeff's cat, unfortunately.
My cat can't.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Come on, Justin. You can't tell me my cat would not have better interpersonal communication skills than the New York Yankees based on reports today. I think she would, Vanilla Bean here, would do a better job managing the Yankees than some of those news reports that I guess you can have all the money in the world.
Can't buy communication.
In the draft, but
I don't know. Cats don't communicate very well. They just kind of I remember reading that stuff. They let you know, but without letting you know, I guess. Yeah. Could at least manipulate everybody to get on the same page, right? Because cats are manipulative like that.
But if you missed it, this does tie to the Guardians because former Guardians player, very briefly, but mostly known as prospect, and in terms of great trade returns, Sean Casey was let go, and one of the things was they said that there is the way he was approaching and teaching or working with hitters went against whatever approach, and like the New York reporter who I saw it from was very, was very like, I'm not saying that it's the right or wrong approach, just it's spent a whole year and that was the degree of.
It's a mess over there. Yeah. It really is. You can't, if you're spending $200 million, man, you better get everybody on the same page somehow, or you got to at least make sure everybody can work off the same set of directions. And that's what you get when you bring in a guy who's never coached before, middle of the season, to like randomly try to fix what's going on with your.
Don't talk about negatively about bringing in guys who've never coached before.
Well, okay, there's a difference between doing it in the middle of the season when you're trying to turn around a bunch of hitters that you expect to be, Franchi Corderos and Jake Bauers. Like, geez,
Franchi Cordero killed the Guardians this year. It was his one.
He did, and then nobody else.
And Jake Bauer had about a good 2 months, but then
I don't even know if he had a good 2 months. Speaking of Jake Bauers, we're going to quickly talk about. We had a lot of comments yesterday about the Guardians can't trade with anybody. They're not good at it. Let's dial that back just a little bit. Now, yes, Tampa Bay has made a killing the last couple of years, fleecing Cleveland on some trades. They have. But don't forget that Cleveland still has a good track record. I think the problem is Cleveland has not made any impact trades since the
Clevenger.
Yeah, and that was like
I guess Lindor, and Ferrer.
Yeah, there's an impact there.
Yeah.
I guess like people forget that when this team was in quote unquote buying mode in 2016, how good they did with that. And all these making trades with other teams is not supposed to be a zero-sum game, right? Like the Junior Caminero thing is, like you said, there's a slim chance that it comes back and nothing happens here. Like Caminero doesn't work out long term, but like that, if it does work out the way things are trending, that's a zero-sum trade. Cleveland loses, Tampa Bay wins, no matter what. But most of the trades, most of the time, you're not looking for that. Both teams are looking for a win, but more oftentimes than not, Cleveland does come back on the winning side. And remember all those reports talked about how Cleveland's so hard to deal with because outside of Tampa Bay, with what's going on right there, like, never trade with Tampa Bay. No one wants to trade with Cleveland because they always seem to get the better of them. Like they have taken stock off the shelves of AJ Preller, who's going to be in hot water here soon, by taking some good players away from him that they sure could use right now, I would assume.
Yeah, no, they've definitely I don't know. And for me, the thing where I look at those comments about like, this team can't make good trades. We also need to slow down.
A little bit much. That's a little much.
We need to just slow down too, because again, I think Nolan Jones, I drove the Nolan Jones bandwagon, but those guys are far from sure things. Like Nolan Jones there's a lot of reasons to think he is going to regress pretty hard in a year.
And there are positive indicators with Juan Brito still.
Yeah. And there's, and
even though you might need the outfielder more.
Yeah, and the same thing with Will Benson. Like, there's a chance in 6 months that these are like deals where we're like, oh, never mind our stressing.
Nobody
like,
wins.
Yeah.
I have a lot
there's-
of doubts
there's
about
even a
the two
world
guys
where
there.
Cleveland still ends up winning both of those trades. There
Yeah.
is. I mean, there's still a world where it is conceivable just because of
Based on what I saw this year, I'm going to say no. But
I mean, if Steven
it's
Hajar, if they figure him out, it's like,
when's the last time Cleveland? Jeff, you always say this. You always
no,
say
I know.
fixed in
Well,
control.
Mike Clevenger.
And that's
Mike
one.
Clevenger was the
guy,
last time they did it. So
I think
it was a trade asset.
Clevenger had better control than Steven Hajar ever did.
Yeah.
I never saw Mike Clevenger walk seven guys.
I mean, I'm just saying it's, unlike the Caminero deal, which is 100% already a loss because he got to the big leagues and they got nothing for it. You can't close the book completely. Listen, the Benson deal, they're probably going to lose. There's a chance they could still pull off the Jones one, and this is kind of the problem with just surface level focus is, on paper, that was an astounding year, but we're not doing things on paper. Like he could easily, there's an easy world where he regresses very hard in a year. And this looks like, like a Stephen Kwan regressed in year 2, like Andres Jimenez essentially regressed in his year 2. We've seen this happen. So before we want to sit there and, be like, this team can't make a good trade. It's like, no, they have made so many good trades that we have been spoiled. This team, I mean, that's a funny
one inning of Corey Kluber for Manuel Clase.
Yeah.
That wasn't a good trade. 1 inning of Corey Kluber.
Gabby Arias, Josh Naylor, Cal Quantrell. Owen Miller had a good few months. Joey Cantillo.
Mike Clevenger, who barely did anything for San Diego. That's a huge stockpile trade for Cleveland. Yeah.
And you can go back to like both Trevor Bauer deals. Like when they got Trevor Bauer, that cost them Chu, who's a fantastic player, who was a fantastic human, but it was a free walk year.
Yeah.
And they also netted
Brian
Shaw in that deal, and Matt Albers, who in that year was an important part of the postseason run. Then when they flipped Bauer, I mean, at that point in time, he had one really good year. And listen, Franmil Reyes, it fell apart, but he had some good
years. Puig was a semi-productive player for them in that 1 year. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of hope for Scott Moss. He did not work out. I actually liked Victor Nova too. Yeah, that trade worked out. Kluber, Clevenger, Bauer, all those trades were, I would say, favored Cleveland pretty well. And go back to when they were buyers too. Like, okay, the Andrew Miller deal, when they traded for Andrew Miller, Clint Frazier didn't work out for anybody, which again, I'm still shocked by. I will stand by. I was very high on the future of Clint Frazier. Didn't work out. Justice Sheffield never worked out. Ben Heller has had some good moments in the majors, but has never really been healthy consistently. Same with JP Fireeisen. He might be the best player in that deal.
He is the best player in that deal.
Yeah, but he's never been consistently healthy either. So, Cleveland gets Andrew Miller and New York ends up with basically nothing in that trade. Except for all Yankees fans thinking they could trade Miguel Andujar and Clint Frazier for every good player on the planet. Probably want to do it for Juan Soto tomorrow. Like even the failed Jonathan Lucroy trade. Look who was in that. That was Greg Allen, who I love Greg Allen. He's been, a fourth outfielder, a AAA reserve option for most of his career. Sean Armstrong, who's a good reliever, was in that deal. He's the best guy in that deal. What was the hypothetical deal? Yu Chang, who some people think can hit 40 home runs, has never been able to find a home. He was in that deal. Who am I missing? Sean Armstrong, Greg Allen, Yu Chang. What was it, right?
Sean Armstrong, Craig. There's another piece, Craig. Sean Armstrong, Greg Allen, Yu Chang.
Is there a fourth piece? I don't know.
I'll pull it up. I feel like there was.
Yeah. The Jay Bruce deal, that was more about money, but they made that work. The Josh Donaldson trade didn't come back to bite them, even though Julian Merriweather's been interesting. And what was it we were talking about? Joe Smith from Toronto that year. Samad Taylor for a minute looked like a good prospect. He hasn't really established himself. He's only 25, but let's not forget, yes, the Tampa Bay trades have been bad. The Aaron Savali trade looks like they might come out on the right side of that. Kyle Manzardo looks like he's going to be an answer for them. We'll see. Other than that, the Tampa Bay trades have been bad. Sure.
I guess it was Mejia, Chang.
Wow.
Allen.
Oh, I didn't say Francisco Mejia. Francisco Mejia's amounted
because he's been so bad.
He's amounted to nothing either. And you traded him to San Diego for Brad Hand. And what did San Diego parlay him to? Luis Patino?
He was part of the Snell deal. He was
the Snell deal. So San Diego gets a win because they got Blake Snell out of Francisco Mejia. But
and I mean, go back and look at that. That's probably one of Tampa's biggest misses is that whole deal. I mean, Patino hasn't turned into anything.
They got Patino and and
Mejia,
and they were
I can't
absolutely
remember
nothing.
what the other
So
pieces were, but
let's
every team
slow the
misses.
roll a little bit on trades. Well,
And-
outside of Tampa Bay, Cleveland does very well in trades. It's usually just Tampa Bay where they end up in the negative. We'll see in the Manzardo thing. I wouldn't jump off the deep end just yet on any of that.
No.
Jeff, are you ready to jump into the deep end on more managers for this team? I feel like we're just every day is just a new manager check-in. Are you ready to jump in on more?
Oh, I'm green with envy.
Well, before we jump in to any managerial updates, I just realized Thanksgiving is a month away. That is wild to me. If you want a free Thanksgiving dinner, check out the Ibotta app. This year, Ibotta is giving you the chance to get cash back and help make sure your Thanksgiving table is complete. Who doesn't want turkey and gravy? Everybody wants turkey and gravy, unless you're a vegetarian. Then you just want gravy and
you can have
vegetarian stuffing.
You can have vegetarian turkey. I've had a tofurkey at one of my Thanksgivings before.
You can have that. I'm not. Turkey's great.
I didn't eat it.
Gravy's great. Stuffing's great. Starting November 1st, for the fourth year in a row, Ibotta is going to give 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you got to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt to Ibotta. So download the Ibotta app now. Use code MLB to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner. That's starting November 1st. Think of all that money you can save by doing that. Just go to the App Store, Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, and use code MLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use code MLB. That's going to make me hungry. World Series starts Friday. Diamondbacks and Rangers. That's wild. Listen to all the action. Yeah, it's. We'll talk a little about more about the World Series tomorrow. But listen to all the action on Friday on your Sirius XM app. All right. We thought we were going to cross Craig Counsell's name off the list a while ago,
and then they pulled him back in.
Pulled him back in.
Thought he was out.
Yeah. Look, it sounds like Cleveland was getting super close on the idea of
voting,
wanting. Well, of voting, yeah. At least wanting to name a manager within by the weekend or maybe early next week. That sounded like the way things were going. But according to I'm going to forget his name on the Athletic. Will Salmon and Ken Rosenthal. Cleveland has requested permission to talk to Craig Counsell. There's a lot of people in the industry who are quote unquote connecting the two. I guess my question there's a lot of ways to look into this. I know you want to talk about one of them. But my question is, do you hold everything off? Like if Cleveland is saying they want to have a manager named by, the weekend or by sometime next week, and there's other guys on the list, should Craig Counsell delay that until you can figure out if he's attainable? And is he still the number one target out there? Because to me, if you can get Craig Counsell, I think for me right now, he is the top available guy. I do like the idea of Stephen Vogt. There's other guys I do like too, but for me, I think Craig Counsell is maybe the top guy you want to at least find out what the interest level is there and what it's going to take.
So maybe I'm just too old and cynical, but I read that piece of hey, you know what? Cleveland's got an opening, and it's a very similar situation to what he's always had and what he's known. Even though he has no connections, it's a very similar situation. And you know what? Cleveland paid a lot of money to pay Tito. So if they're willing to pay money, then they're willing to pay money for Counsell. And it just felt to me a little bit like an agent. Because here's the thing, all breaking news, it doesn't come from teams, it comes from agents. And you build those agent relationships by occasionally, I've had agents ask me to be like, hey, this guy is hot. Or I've been given bad information by agents. I always talk about, I got burned one year in a draft where I was told for sure a player was going to a team and it didn't happen. And that was just an agent trying to get a player going higher. So this just felt to me, and this is me being old and cynical, about an agent being like, hey, you know what? If you're not going to give Counsell what he wants in Milwaukee, you know what? Cleveland is the same type of organization, and they have paid their manager well. And if he doesn't want to go to New York and make a lot of money, Cleveland will pay him a lot of money. Like I just saw this as negotiating via press.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element to that. If the source for the story came from an agent, then yes, 100%. That's what it is. Unless it's another executive in the industry or something like that. That's the only time, because that happens too, and that's also a leverage play too. It may not be managerial specific. Usually, we see this more when it comes to trades or the hot stove stuff. Is when you're trying to drum up interest for your player or things like that. Sometimes other executives will leak information to journalists for that purpose too. So it depends on the source. Like if it's an agent thing, 100% it's negotiating through media. If it's from another executive or somebody around baseball, it's a different story because those things do happen. So I'd be curious to see. Obviously, we're never going to know the source, but I think it's. I don't think all news comes from agents. I think some of it does come from executives, but there's always an agenda with it, right? There's nothing is ever told. I like Ken Rosenthal. I think he's a very good reporter. Plenty of integrity. Same with Jeff Passan. This is why for me, Jeff Passan is the most A+ reporter out there, because he never puts stuff out into the Twitter sphere unless there is a high degree of truth to it, not just a shred of truth to it, but if there's serious truth to it, he doesn't put it out there. So
he's not someone who's ever had to walk anything back.
Yeah, not really. I don't think Ken Rosenthal has either for the most part, but I think there are times that you can get not played, but you can get fed stuff because I don't think Ken Rosenthal needs a story, so I'm not going to say that, but I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say. I guess I'm just saying, like, if Jeff Passan was the one to say that Cleveland's interested in Craig Counsell, I'm definitely going to buy into that no matter what, no matter who the source is. Maybe a little less on Ken, but I shouldn't, that's not the case. But
no, I think I put both of those two and Jason Stark are just kind of like my highest tier of like baseball people.
I love Jason Stark too, but he's less of a newsbreaker these days.
No, yeah, no, 100%, which is why he's not like, I don't even know where Jason Stark works right now, which is not as like a dig on where. Is he at the Athletic? Yeah, he does not write much.
You're right. Yeah, he does. He writes all the time. He does their weird, he does weird stats. That's what that's his beat now.
So it's just it doesn't. Maybe here's the thing. So I like him, and here's the problem with the Athletic. I like him. He's a person I used to read a lot. Didn't realize he was there and or publishing anything. So that's not good for them as an outlet. But so much of it is moved. So much of it is moved to news breaking that kind of guys like him are. Just,
I mean, that's the point of the Athletic is to have a mix of both. Anyway, there's two ways here. So I think, he could stick with what he knows in David Stearns. And look, if David Stearns tells Steve Cohen, hey, Craig Counsell's our guy, it doesn't matter what it's going to take, we want Craig Counsell, Steve Cohen's writing that check. End of story. And this is why we crossed Craig Counsell off the list when we started talking about guys who could be the next manager for Cleveland, because we just assumed he was going to the Mets, and the Mets have already requested permission to speak with him. So the wheels are kind of already in motion there. So this is why that article does feel like Cleveland is just kind of along for the ride, but it says Cleveland's interested. So, I mean, at least it's worth having the interview, even if you're going to be a stalking horse, it's worth having the interview just to see what happens. The following article or the following paragraph in that story goes
might also be another way to get information on Vogt.
That's true. He does have connections to Stephen Vogt. You just interview everybody because you want to know what it's the same way it works in the world with jobs, and not just baseball, like real world. You interview somebody to learn something about them. Maybe you can learn something about their processes. Maybe you grill Craig Counsell on what he thinks about this process or how he would go about this communication strategy or whatever. And maybe you learn from what he does, because you do respect Craig Counsell as a manager. You do think he would be a good fit. And maybe he wants to go to New York, and maybe you are a stalking horse, but maybe you pick up on a few things from Craig Counsell that you respect, and you maybe consider adding it to your process, or you're passing that around the office to see what everybody else thinks of that opinion as well. And maybe he recommends some other guys like Stephen Vogt to you. There's always something to be gained from those interviews. I feel like it's the same as interviewing in the real world. It's in the following paragraph said he could just very well stay in Milwaukee too. I still think it's likely he goes to New York, but you and I have talked about, good bosses, worth working for good bosses. Money doesn't always mean everything. The bright lights in New York don't always mean everything either. Craig Counsell is sort of a Midwest guy.
I didn't love my 6 years there.
Yeah, so there you go. Maybe he's not a guy who wants to. I mean, look at Jose Ramirez is a guy who didn't want to go to New York. He wanted to stay in a place like Cleveland. Who's to say Craig Counsell isn't on the same wavelength? The only thing I will say about Craig Counsell before we move on to our next managerial candidate, if he does come to Cleveland, I guess can I start forgiving him for scoring the winning run in the World Series? I can't. And actually,
he had the tie, wasn't he? Did he knock in the tying run and then score the winning run? He was involved in both.
I thought Jim Eisenreich's.
No, because remember we had this debate off air, and I looked.
We did.
Yeah.
But also go back and look at the video one more time if you can stomach it. I still think Craig Counsell jumped over the plate and did never touch the plate. I'm still holding on to that theory. So I'm not bitter at all. I'm not bitter at all. All right, let's move on to candidate number 2.
So our good friends over at Jase. So I've talked many times about my sinus infections, and right here, I was curious to go look up. And for sinus infections, it's typically Augmentin. And what did they get in my Jase case? But the alternative for Augmentin. So right there, next time I have a sinus infection, I don't have to wait 2 weeks to go find the doctor. Go to the doctor. You got to wait in line. Take forever to go to the doctor. You got to take time off work, honestly, because it's in the middle of the day. Instead, next time mine gets super bad, and it's going to. That's just my life. I've got it on hand. And that is the power of the Jase case. It's allowing you to empower yourself to take care of yourself. Or, if you're going to travel, hey, not the worst thing to have a whole set of antibiotics on hand in case you get sick, in case you are in a place where if you don't have a national medical plan, going to see a doctor can get very expensive. This way, you have everything on hand you need. But make sure to check it out for yourself. Go to jasemedical.com and enter the code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on the order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at Jase medical.com.
And then Friday, we got the World Series. First pitch, I believe, is at 8:07 Eastern, 5:0 or 4:07 Hawaiian time, wherever you might be. Check it out on your Sirius XM app. Hey, real quick, too. Cavs won on Wednesday night. Did you know that Locked On Cavs is part of the Locked On Network? Make sure after you listen to Locked On Guardians, you listen to Locked On Cavs. Our friends over there.
If you want to go dig in the history, Chris and I did a crossover for this show from Locked On Cavs, Chris Manning. So we've had him on Locked On Guardians.
Yeah, good friends over there. So make sure you're listening to that podcast as you follow the Cavs this season. All right, so another guy added to the list is Andy Green. So in that same article about Craig Counsell,
does everyone get my green with envy joke from earlier?
See, I didn't get it until now, man. All right, I see it. So he is also part of the 45 people that have interviewed for the job. I don't know if they've interviewed 45 people. They might have. I think tomorrow we should go back and we should try to name everybody. I don't think we have time today to quiz. No. I want to quiz you. Don't look it up. I want to quiz you on if you remember everybody they've interviewed so far or who they've been connected to, but it's a lot. So Andy Green, they said, has interviewed for the job in Cleveland. He spent 4 seasons in San Diego under the mess that is AJ Preller.
Yeah, right now Cleveland has done super well in turning broken things from San Diego into workable central pieces. So, hey.
Well, what do you mean broken? I mean, they got what was broken from San Diego?
Well, Cal Quantrill was a reliever who couldn't work as a starter when they got him. Josh Naylor was struggling to be a league average bat, given 3 opportunities in the big leagues at that point in time. Franmil Reyes was probably the best piece in terms of like current value compared to the overall value, but they had to work with Naylor to get him to where he is. They had to work with Quantrill. Joey Cantillo didn't have any velocity when they acquired him. I mean, it was a lot of taking those lesser pieces from San Diego. And I feel like there's another pitcher at some point they added that I've forgotten about who ended up being a pretty good value.
Well, Brad Hand, but San Diego.
He had already been solid at that point.
Yeah. I guess that's a good point. Andy Green doesn't have his Wikipedia page for the fact that he has played just as long as Stephen Vogt, and His Wikipedia page isn't quite as long. Andy Green did play a season over in Japan, so that is interesting. He does have 4 years of managerial experience in the majors. He did manage for a couple of seasons in the minors, and he is currently the bench coach for the Chicago Cubs. So I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot to talk about on Andy Green in terms of like philosophy. Like he at least had a couple of strong seasons. What'd you say? He was part of the Padres when they tried to make a lot of
it was like right at because
trades.
He was there for like the second year, and it's crazy to me that AJ Preller has gotten to do the number of managers he's had because he came in and it was trading for Matt Kemp, trading multiple expensive pieces for Craig Kimbrell. Like he went on a buying streak for a team that was not ready to buy, that had giving away Trey Turner. Like people tend to forget that he inherited Trey Turner and then traded him away for like, I think that was that Will Myers. Will Myers went to Tampa in that deal, and I don't know. Or maybe
Will Myers went to San Diego. Yeah.
But like either way, it's like they have made the postseason once, and that dude has spent a crud ton of money, made a lot of questionable decisions, and is somehow still viewed as this genius.
Yeah, well, I think 2024 is going to be an awfully hot seat for AJ Preller, so we'll see what happens.
His biggest advantage is an owner who wants continuity because he's had health issues and wants to win now. Like I think anywhere else he'd be out. Yeah,
probably. I mean, look, this is not the San Diego Padres podcast, but
we love Javi.
They've drafted well. They've signed good international free agents. There is all that. I mean, they trade a lot of them away. I mean, Andy Green was a manager before David Ross, so he's helped David Ross with in-game decisions. He's been in the majors for a couple of years.
Yeah, I don't know. 3 years in San Diego. I think that ended in 2019. I think he's been with the Cubs since 2019, so that's 3 more years. He definitely has experience. I know we had that debate about the importance of experience, and you and I varied to degrees, and our listeners had that debate in the comments as well. So if you're looking at that, interesting to consider.
Yeah, Andy Green had a nice career for himself. I mean, for a guy who was not a super high pick. I'm trying to see. I don't see where he was drafted here.
No,
he was a 24. He was a 24th round
day 3 pick. Yeah.
He is in the Kentucky High School Hall of Fame, so there is that. Or the University of Kentucky Athletics Hall of Fame, so there is that.
I mean, get to the big leagues, you might make that Hall of Fame.
That's a good point. Yeah. Like I said, he played in Japan, so he's got a little of cultural experience, I should say. Even though he was hurt most of his time in Japan, it sounds like. I don't know. This one doesn't really. It pales in comparison, obviously, to Craig Counsell, if that's a guy who's number one, or if he's available. And even though he has experience, I feel like. I mean, I don't know much about Andy Green. Like you said, Stephen Vogt's Wikipedia page was ridiculously long for someone who was a backup catcher and for 10 years or whatever, and Andy Green's is pretty short, even though it was a very similar timeline, and he's got managerial experience. So we'll see. But Andy Green, he's already a bench coach, so I think there's really nowhere you can go higher than a bench coach than manager. So, like that's the next step, right? As you go from bench coach to manager.
Yeah,
he's certainly not going to leave Chicago as the bench coach to be a bench coach for whoever gets the job here if it's not him. So
unless he gets paid significantly more.
Yeah, even then though, like I don't know if teams really grant lateral moves that often. Usually you got to ask permission, and it's usually only for a step up, not a lateral move.
Yeah, we just saw it happen with Bob Melvin, and we saw here in the day, and
that's obviously
and it's
unique
a group
circumstance.
And Cleveland has been good about letting guys go elsewhere. And Cleveland is run by, or Chicago is
not for lateral moves. They always let guys go when there's an opportunity to go up.
It was essentially a lateral move, and when they let Ross Atkins move over, it was somewhat lateral. But remember, it's Carter Hawkins over there, right? A former Cleveland guy. So I think they'd be.
That's not lateral though.
No, Carter but I'm Hawkins, saying it's no, I know, but I'm saying I agree. I'm saying it's someone they have a relationship with. There's a chance that could happen. because they've
there's
their
that.
whole view is to not block anyone if they want to move on. So if he has that same view, it could happen. I don't think it will. I don't think that's what they're going to do. But
yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see in the coming days. We'll see what looks there. Cleveland thought they were going to have a manager name soon, but again, if Craig Counsell's available, if he really truly is available and you're interested, you push that timeline back and you figure out if you have any shot of landing him. I feel like really quickly, Tom Hamilton is up for the Ford C. Frick Award, which is the Broadcasters Award. He'd be in the Hall of Fame. I think someday Tom Hamilton is destined for the Hall of Fame. I know there are some people out there who don't love the way Tom Hamilton has aged as a broadcaster in terms of injecting certain things into the broadcast. Personally, me, I love Tom Hamilton. I think he brings a lot of flavor to the game. There were some weird things over the years, like his
Carlos Santana dislike.
Yeah, he did come around on Carlos Santana after a while, like a lot of Clevelanders did. There were people who were also in the wrong about him in his early career here too. Tom Hamilton recorded an intro for my wedding this past summer, so I'm going to be eternally grateful for Tom Hamilton because that everybody was super impressed by that and loved that, and one of the nicest guys I've ever had a chance to talk to. So yeah, I think he's a great broadcaster. He is a legend and a guy I always looked up to and aspired to be like. Very hard to find more guys who are, when you're talking about just broadcasting baseball, forget all the other stuff. I know it's hard to forget sometimes and people get mad about that, but the guy is it's a great home run call, exciting, respected around the game, and it just seems like a nice guy off air. But I don't know if he'll win this year. That's an interesting field. I feel like he's up against, I think he'll get in someday. I don't know about this year, but I think Tom Hamilton deserves, and I think he'll get in someday.
Yeah, I think there is every opportunity for him to do that. And we've got to get this one in the bank. So thank you all for listening, rating, and reviewing, downloading. It helps. Our numbers have been trickling upwards, so we appreciate all of that. And go, Guardians, go.